What is going on, Sabres fans, and welcome to another episode of the Sabres Spotlight podcast, where we shine a light on all things Sabres hockey. Ryan, what's going on?
Not a whole lot, buddy. Another week has gone by almost from the last time we recorded, and the weeks keep going on, and the more time goes on, the closer we get to puck drop, and I couldn't be more excited.
Yep. Lots of Sabres news to talk about. Actually, kind of exciting because we discussed captains last week, and just a few hours before we hopped on here to record tonight, we got some news there, so we'll discuss that. Coming up, we're going to start with some Sabres news today, just hop right into it because there's not a whole lot around the league that we need to discuss, but I feel like we're primed for a great show tonight. I feel like I came in hot with that intro, and I'm just kind of ready to rock and roll. I'm feeling like I'm jazzed up for this one here.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so Sabres have been, they're 4-0 in the preseason right now. We're not going to go through the preseason games, but they're just, dominating. The kids are doing good. The NHL lineup dominated when they should have. So we're bringing the winning ways back to Buffalo early on here. I love it.
Some people are saying that the Sabres will never lose another hockey game.
Yeah, those tweets are so funny. Seeing them everywhere it's hilarious. But so I think what I want to start with today is yeah, let's just start with the big news right out the gate. We'll get into the players who traveled over to Germany, the 27 players, and we can do a little bit more of kind of a roster breakdown projection in a little bit here. But we got to start with the big news right away. We anticipated it on the show last week, and we got the official announcement today that Rasmus Dahlin has been named the captain of the Buffalo Sabres for the 24-25 season. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
He deserved to be captain. Like this was, I know a lot of people wanted like Tuck to be captain, but this is a no-brainer in my opinion. He is the heart and soul of the Buffalo Sabres. He's our most skilled player. He's easily our most brandable player. He is our grittiest player, our toughest player, and Lindy Ruff is going to have so much fun coaching Rasmus Dahlin. And I know that Lindy will put Rasmus in a situation where he can not only lead by example, but also like lead in the locker room and count on the other guys in the leadership group too to push us forward in the right direction. But I think Rasmus was a no brainer.
Yeah, it was. We talked about it last week episode that it was a no brainer decision, and I'm happy for him that he finally gets it. He's been the one player over the last couple of seasons when things have been really rough that he's always shown he's always shown that kind of inner dog, and he's always been our most competitive player, and it speaks to it speaks to his personality and his kind of inner leadership that you could display that and keep that consistency with your play and your competitive drive and your leadership when you don't formally have a letter when the times are tough, and he wasn't formally recognized for that. So having displayed that during those tougher seasons, I think is a good precursor for where he is now. And having gone through some of that adversity helps bring you to where you are today. I really enjoyed the way that the Sabres announced it with the Josh Allen video. That got me hyped. I was watching it. So my mom was just over a little bit ago, and the kids were running around, and I played it on the TV, and I'm like, Riley, let's watch this video. Josh Allen's in it, and it's about hockey. And so we watched it. It's like a minute clip, little over a minute. And she's like, that was cool. Let's watch it again. So we watched it twice. But what you think
That's
of that,
awesome.
man? That was an awesome
Oh,
video.
it was such a nice touch to have Josh Allen like narrate the video. I feel like the media teams for both the Bills and Sabres are just they're just like on point like all the time. And the video was great that corresponded with the narration from Josh, but man, it really got me fired up. I also watched it two times back to back because I'm like, I just want to run through a brick wall right now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Brick wall.
There you
There
go.
we
There you
go.
go.
Got it out.
Yeah, I actually,
What did you think?
I'm not gonna lie, I shed a tear, while I was watching it
Yeah.
for sure.
Well,
You,
you
you get
cry at the
emotional
littlest
about
things.
sports. That's true. That's
You're
true. That's
emotional.
true.
What did you think about the video of Lindy announcing to the team that
Yeah,
Darling got to see?
I just watched that like probably a half hour ago, and it was pretty cool. It looked like they were in the oh, what's it called? The little like hidden bar thing. What's the word for that? You know what I'm talking about?
The like what do you mean? I don't know what you're saying.
What's the name for like a it's like a bar that's like kind of hidden, like that no one knows
What the
about.
fuck are what is a hidden bar? We could just skip
Anyways,
over it. This is great
it's
podcasting.
no, it's I think it's I heard a rumor that there's this, again, the name is escaping me. It'll come eventually and I'll say it on this podcast. And like there's like this little like hidden like bar somewhere. I think it maybe it's under like the building next to it, the Labatt Blue building, or somewhere there. It looked like they were there. But Adams talks and then Ruff talks, and it's pretty cool. It was a cool touch. It's funny then when like Ruff gives his little speech and says, "All right, Darlene's the captain," and he comes up and and Darlene talks a little bit, and he's just like he gives like a little like 10 minute, maybe we didn't see it all, but he gives like a little 10-second blurb, and he's just like, let's do something good here. And I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, this is our guy. I'm like, he's just more the his English is not bad, but he's just more of the display on the ice, lead by example type of dude for sure.
I actually want to see real quick how many Swedish captains have been in the NFL or in the NHL.
But the video in itself was really cool. There's While you're looking that up, I'm just going to elaborate on this because this is a thought that I shared on Twitter too. There's some good vibes around this team right now, between the new video board going up, the new roof, the new mural that they just did, which looks awesome, the announcement of the captain and getting like Josh Allen involved, the fact that the Bills are doing so good. It's just good vibes in like Buffalo sports. And I know we had good vibes at the beginning of last season as well too, and that kind of imploded. But I truly think this year is going to be different, and they have a better team. And going through last year is going to help them a lot. But it feels good, man. It feels good right now, and I'm excited for the season to start in a week.
Yeah, me too, man. I agree. So Dahlin is the 13th Swedish captain in NHL history, and there are currently four captains from Sweden. So he joins the cohort of Michael Backlund, Gabe Landeskog, and Victor Hedman as the Swedish-born captains in the NHL.
Yeah, Victor Hedman. I mean, we'll probably talk about the Lightning a little bit later, but that's a big transition for the Leafs there. Oh, Speakeasy. That's what it's called.
Oh my God, dude! You could have asked me a million times, and I would have never, ever thought of Speakeasy.
But you know what? That's like that correct
Yeah,
word. That is
I
the
get
correct
it.
terminology. Yeah.
Also, you
So it
said
looked like they
Leafs.
were in the.
I think you meant Lightning. We're all out of
No,
sorts tonight. We're all out of sorts. We're all out of sorts. We really
I'm pretty
need
sure. I'm
to.
pretty sure I actually said Lightning.
Okay,
We'll know when we hear it back. But
but we're just so excited for the season that we can't even get our like verbiage straight tonight. Which is
before we get
it could be
into
a
the
really bad listening experience or a really good listening experience.
Yeah, whatever. But before we get into the players that travel to Germany, we should probably just announce the four A's that were handed out too. So this will kind of round out the leadership group. No surprises here as well. Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, Matthias Samuelson, and Dylan Cousins. So you'll have four A's. I'm not sure if they're going to all wear them at the same time or if they're going to kind of like rotate like one or two at a time.
I would assume that we're gonna have like road captains and like road assistants and home assistants,
Oh, okay.
or they could
Yeah, because
rotate.
like,
We don't know.
yeah, four at once would be a little bit crazy. And I know Ruff traditionally, like in the past, has kind of rotated, things in and out. So yeah, whether they do home road or whatever they decide, that's pretty cool. I'm really glad that Tage got one because he's the guy I was kind of looking at. Tage and Cousins, I like. Tuck and Samuelson, whatever. That's fine. But that's your leadership core right there.
Yeah, I like the transition from like you know recognizing three people and like not having like a structured leadership group, but this kind of gives us like a leadership core, like five guys you can rely on.
Hmm. Hmm. I had this thought today. In a way, it's kind of relatable to the Bills and the fact that like how the Bills roster got younger and everyone was like, oh, expecting them to take this big step back, but they have these like young players kind of stepping up. And the Sabres are the same way. It's kind of like, all right, Oposo's out, Gergensons is out, Eric Johnson was a big failure from last year. All these kind of older players that they had this changing of the guard last season and did play better hockey down the stretch. It was just too late. So you're hoping that again, kind of like the Bills, you can catch lightning in a bottle, and these young players really take the ownership of being the leaders of this team and feel accountable to have that higher standard that they're looking for. So it's kind of interesting how there's a little bit of a parallel between the two teams.
I agree. That's a great point.
All right, so the 27 players who traveled to Germany, and we can talk about thoughts a little bit more here before we get into the over and unders that we have prepared for the show a little bit later on. But 27 players travel, and this is going to be close to the roster that we're looking at. So right now the forward lines appear to be Paterka, Thompson, and Tuck locked in as your top line. The second line is going to be Benson, Cousins, and Quinn. Now Cousins and Quinn seems like locks for that second line with that Benson spot perhaps being up in the air with Kulik, who knows, or even Zucker. But right now that's the second line. Greenway, McLeod, and Zucker making up the third line. Malenstein, Lafferty, Abicabel on that fourth line, and then the fifth line of Rusek, Krebs, and Kulik. The defense pairs right now: Darlene Jokiharju, Byram Power, Samuelson Clifton, Bryson Gilbert, and Clegg as kind of that extra defenseman in case of emergency type of thing. And then the three goalies: UPL, Levi, and Reimer. So looking at the 27 players here, you would expect that the Sabres are going to roster 23. What are you what are your thoughts here as far as how the roster is shaping up and things you're looking at, over the next week?
I think it's really cool that JJ Peterka is getting the opportunity tomorrow to play in his home country of Germany. And I really, the only surprise for me with the 27 guys going overseas is the fact that Ryan Johnson wasn't the extra defenseman going. Like he
Yeah.
stayed here, he played. I'm not sure if he played tonight, but he's been, participating in the games played, over here. That was a little surprising for me, but the other names, it was not very surprising at all. I'm glad that Yuri Kulik seems to be still getting an opportunity to maybe make his mark and steal a roster spot here. So maybe he plays tomorrow, maybe he doesn't, but that's nice to see him travel with the team.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up about Brian Johnson. I wonder if that gives us an insight of their plans for him for this season then. I think they know what they have in him because they had him for 40 games last season and you would anticipate a little bit of a step up, but I just kind of wonder if the plan right now is, hey, you're going to be, on the top defensive pair in Rochester, and if we need you to come up, in case of injuries or sicknesses, whatever happens during the season, then, we'll obviously call you up, but we want you to get a solid year of development in Rochester and try and dominate down there. I wonder if that's kind of where they're thinking right now with him.
Yeah, I mean the guys that are not going to be here from this list, I would assume. I'm just assuming that Kulik's not making the team like right now. As much as I want him to, it would be so fun if he did. I'm just going to assume that he's not going to make it and he's going to go back to Rochester. So him, uh, Gilbert,
Clegg.
Clegg, and Reimer will probably be the four guys that get sent back to Rochester when they come back home.
Yeah, but you got Rusek there too.
Yeah, I know. He could go back down. He could go back down, but he's on a one-way deal, so I don't think they want to pay him, $1 million to go play in Rochester. He can just chill out and be like the 13th or 14th forward.
That's what's tough for me because I don't know, man. I I guess it depends on if they're really happy with these lines because like if they're thinking Greenway is going to be kind of like in every game player, and I guess he doesn't necessarily even need to be an every game player, but I don't. I still want to see Kulik make this team. I think he's ready for that. I don't think he needs another. I don't think he needs more time in Rochester. I think he's shown that he can be up, and at the very least, like if it's not working out in the first like 10 or 15 games, you could always make that move back down. I don't know. I think I'd like to see him be up on this squad. So I'm kind of thinking like Rusek is like a send down for me. Reimer,
Yeah, I can see it.
Clegg, and
What if
Gilbert
let me
would kind of be my
pose
four.
let me pose this question to you. What if they decide that they want to keep 8 defensemen? Because I think it's plausible that they keep 8D.
Well, if they keep 8D, then they're only going to keep what they're going to keep
One forward.
13 forwards total.
Right.
So one extra forward, which if they do that, then you're probably looking at Krebs. I would think you would definitely you're definitely going to keep Krebs up, especially now with the contract. So
Yep.
in that situation, if they kept AD, then Kulik would have to go down.
Right. I know. It's a lot of roster juggling here going on, and it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens, at the bottom. But I think both scenarios are in my head. And like I said last pod, and I've been saying, and you've been saying, Yuri Kulik can make the opening night lineup, and it would not surprise me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it just the thing with him is like other people have said too. If he makes this team, they want him to be in a top six role because that's what he is. And if they're happy with where Benson's at right now and they want him in the top six, then that's fine. But I agree 100% with what you said last week. Like if we're looking at these rosters right now, if I have Kulik on the second line and Benson on the third line instead of Greenway, I think that is a way better team. So I'm like that's where I'm hoping things fall right now. We'll see what they eventually end up doing. Let's talk about the defensive pairs here a little bit more real quickly before we transition into some of the other segments here because we've talked about goalies already, but we haven't spent as much time on the defense. Are you cool with these defensive pairs here? Downlin, Yoki Haru, Byron Power. We got Samuelson, Clifton, and then Bryson and Gilbert. Like, what are your thoughts on the defense?
I think this is the ideal setup for the way the roster is constructed right now. Like, yes, you, me, and the other thousands of Sabres fans out there wanted an upgrade on Henry Jokiharju, and it would be so nice to have two complete stud balls up on the top pair. But Jokiharju has worked in the past with Dowleen like quite well. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not too upset about it, but this second pair has me feeling very excited because if Power
Yeah,
and Byram win their minutes together somehow, and are decent defensively and are just pushing offense, 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 man, we could be having some fun times scoring like loads of goals.
I mean, Powers already lit the lamp a couple times in preseason.
Yeah, he looks much much more engaged offensively.
Do you think a Darlene and Byram pair is possible or no?
Yeah, I mean Lindy, we all know Lindy. He's gonna change everything up multiple times, sometimes in the same game. That would intrigue me too. But Power Yoki Haru was statistically one of the worst pairs in hockey last year. Like they just do not mix well, so you'd have to shake up the third pair as well. And
That's
I
what I was
I
just
kind of
thinking. Yeah,
I kind of like Samuelson and Clifton together. Like I feel like that's a nice, not necessarily a shutdown pair, because I don't think Connor Clifton can play like a shutdown kind of role. He's not going to get the minutes for that. But that's like a hold your own, keep the puck out of your own net kind of pair, and I kind of like it.
yeah. I don't I don't have any. I like Samuelson and Clifton, and I like Byram Power. I the Yoki Haru playing with Darlene concerns me a little bit, not from a not from a defensive standpoint, but you've heard Lindy and Adams talk about how there's going to be a big mentality or shift in play this year of breaking the pucks out quick. And something we talked about last year, which wasn't there this year, is that the breakouts were so slow because it looked like, well, we first off, we tried all these long stretch passes that never connected, but there was no fluidity going up the ice, and guys never knew where their partners were going to be or where the forwards were going to be skating up the ice when you're trying to break things out. And one thing that Lindy and Adams have really harped on this training camp is breaking those puck outs and trusting that who you're playing with is in the right spot so they can get things out quickly and more efficiently. And I wonder if I like Yoki Haru. I think he's a fine defenseman, but I just wonder Darlene anticipates and reads the game so quickly. I just wonder if there's going to be any disconnect there, or if they're going to be able to kind of have that connection like right away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. Darlene does read the game at like a such a magnificent level. And where it concerns me, it's interesting that you have like concerns getting the puck from defense to offense. Where it concerns me the most is in the offensive zone because I know Darlene wants to activate so much and try to create. Where Yoki Haru kind of kind of has a peanut brain when it comes to the offensive side. Like doesn't really do a whole lot of creative things. So that kind of is just like if the puck goes on his stick, it kind of offense kind of dies a little bit.
Hmm.
So that is a little frustrating, but I think they can make it work. I really do.
Yeah, yeah, I'm fine with that. It'll be. I think. Did we sign Yoki to a 2 year or 1 year deal?
Let's
I
check. I can check
I
on that.
I feel like he just got a 1 year deal. What
Me
what
too.
really what really excites me is for next season the fact that I think Ryan Johnson can step into one of these two lines, because I think I love the way that Johnson plays. And if you give me, say, a line of a top line next season, if they end up extending Byram, of like, say, Darlene and Byram on that top line, and then like Ryan Johnson and Owen Power on the second line, that to me is like nice pairings. You could even, if you have enough faith in him, you could even throw Ryan Johnson with Darlene. Like they look good at times last year playing together, and then you could keep Power and Byram together. Is it a 1 year deal or 2 year?
It's a 1 year deal.
Okay, so like if that's their plan, like I'm all on board with that. Maybe they want a little bit more stability this season with Yoki Haru, but like next season, these defensive pairs can get really interesting in that top four, because I think Ryan Johnson will be ready for that.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, he looked pretty promising at points and then lost at other points. So I'm really excited to see how his development goes. He should be the all situations number one guy in Rochester this year.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. All right, and then yeah, Bryson is fine. You think if they carry seven defensemen, you think it's going to be Bryson over Gilbert?
I do because I kind of think that they can sneak Gilbert through waivers, but I
Yeah,
kind of don't think that they'd be able to sneak Bryson through waivers. Like his skating is too valuable.
yeah.
So I think Bryson will be the 7D and like he's kind of just been here for a couple years. He vibes with the
Hmm.
boys. I know it's
Hmm.
such a corny thing to like to say, but he
It
legitimately
matters.
is friends with all of these guys, and he's a great locker room guy. So if I think he would win out over the two.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm with you there. All right. So then, where do you want to go next? You want to get into our over unders?
Let's do some over unders.
All right. All right. I'm excited for this, dude. This was one of my favorite episodes last season. This is going to be a Sabres Spotlight staple every single
Yeah,
year
it
going
is
forward.
quite fun. Even though last year we were so like drunk on our own hype that we just told everyone to smash all the overs, and it did not go well.
Yeah, but we'll put the disclaimer out there now that we both, I think we could say both, we both suck at betting on the sports books. So do not take our advice on these overs. These are just a couple random guys on a podcast, just spilling out their thoughts. This is not betting advice, but the first six or seven that we're gonna do are actual lines that we gathered from a combination of FanDuel and DraftKings. We made a couple of our own as well here for some players that we wanted to discuss that weren't in the sports books. But either way, we're gonna start here as we did last season with team points. So FanDuel had team points this season set at 87.5. So 2 years ago, we were at 91. I think last season we finished at 84. So they kind of have us right in the middle of those two benchmarks there. You would think 80, well, either 88 or 87 points is likely not going to be enough for the playoffs. So this point total here has me assuming the sports books don't anticipate us making the playoffs. But what do you say to over under 87.5 points for this season?
Well, this is a preview of what's to come for my division preview that we're going to do later in the show, or prediction, I should say, later in the show. But I'm going to say that the Sabres are going over 87.5 points. The Sabres are making the playoffs this year, everybody. All week long, I've been telling my other friends, not you, but I've been telling other people, I don't think they're making the playoffs. I'm just down on them for some reason. And then suddenly something shifted in me, and I'm buying back into the hype. The Buffalo Sabres are making the playoffs, and they're finishing with 96 points.
Oh man, that is a hefty point total, 96. I wonder. We'll give your the predictions for the division later on, but 96 that could put them in competition for third in the Atlantic potentially. I'll have to see if that's where you have them or not. But okay, so 96. So you are smashing that over. That is
I am
that is
just
interesting.
hammering it.
Hammering the over right away. I love it. I love it. I think I'm definitely going to go over here too. I don't know if I'm anticipating a 12-point increase. I mean, in actuality, that's only like six more wins than last season, which I think is certainly possible with this group. Uh, the one thing that has me a little bit hesitant is that they are still kind of banking on a lot of things to kind of turn around from last year, as far as like some of their players to bounce back and UPL to have another good season, which I think all those things can happen. But if any if a couple of those things don't go their way, then I can see it being a little bit difficult to get all the way to 96. But I do think they're going to go over 87.5 and likely over 90. I might put them around that 90, 91, 92 point mark from a couple seasons ago. But I think Lindy Ruff makes a big difference here as well, and at least a few wins. So we're gonna smash that over on this team point total
Yep,
too. So we're going two for
let's
two.
do it.
Easy money for the Sabres Spotlight crew tonight. All right, let's talk player goals. I did a lot of these for goals because Skinner's out. We talked about the need for them to score some more goals. People are upset that we didn't go out and sign that top six forward. I don't think there was a ton of options, but let's go through and see where these goals are going to lie for this team because they're going to need scoring. So over under for Alex Tuch goals this season is set at 23 and a half. What do you say to that?
I only am going to say under 23 and a half because I don't see him in particular putting up the power play numbers, but I also see Thompson and Paterka siphoning off his even strength goals. So it
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't surprise me if he finishes with 24-ish, 25-ish, but I'm going to just, for the sake of saying it, he's going to get around 21 or 22 goals.
So just for reference, last four seasons 18, 12, 36, and 22. Now, the 18 and the 12 were seasons where he didn't play as much 55 games with Vegas and then 50 with the Sabres, those couple seasons. So, not full seasons there, but I think it's an aggressive number for Tuck. I was a little surprised by that line. I kind of anticipated it to be more around 20 goals myself, which is kind of where I think his ceiling is. I don't see Tuck as like a perennial like 30 goal scorer. It's interesting because like his skating is so good, and I love the way he's smooth with the puck and he can finish. Like he can put him away. I feel like he's better on the rush though. When as far as like scoring goals, because he can make guys miss, and I feel like a lot of his goals kind of come in that type of setting. I don't think he does as well finishing like in it when it's more of kind of like a neutral um, 5-on-5, possession there. So I think that can limit it. Like you said, with some of those other high power players, maybe taking a little bit more of the power play goals. I'm going to say under here for Tuck too. I think he's probably going to come in around 20 or 21 again, just like last season. I think that 36-year season was an outlier for him statistically for his career, but
We're on point together tonight.
we agree too much.
I know we do. We do.
All right, let's get into JJ Paterka. This one's interesting. Lower line set at 25.5 goals for the German going into next season. What do you say about that one there?
This is where I think it's free money. Free money from the sports books. JJ is getting over 25 and a half goals. This guy
He
is
might get
going
over
to
25 and a
fly.
half in the preseason.
This guy is about like I know last year was an incredible year for JJ and it was in most ways like a breakout year, but I don't think the NHL has seen the best of JJ Paterka. I think this guy is especially if the Sabres are good and making noise and like gonna finally make the playoffs. I think this guy is going to become one of like the household names among hockey circles. He's so good. He
Yeah,
is so good.
yeah.
I think he's going to hit 30 goals this year and not break a sweat doing it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm smashing the over on this. The thing I appreciate about Paterka is his ability to consistently score goals. Like he's not just like a streaky goal scorer. I know he's had a couple instances throughout the couple years where like he gets cold, but it doesn't happen very often. And honestly, like what player doesn't have those types of streaks? Like that happens to everybody. But if you go back to even his like Amerks days when with him and Quinn in the playoffs, like Quinn was the one who struggled in those AHL playoffs like a couple years ago when they were still just prospects, and Paterka was still netting goals throughout the playoffs. I think Jack Quinn, if anything, is a little bit more of like a streaky scorer and can score goals in bunches, and he can put them away for sure. He's got a deadly shot. But Paterka, he's just so consistent, and I think he found his groove last season. He's shown growth year over year, and I think he is, as opposed to Alex Tuck, I think he is perennially going to be a 30 goal scorer, and working on that top line. I see him hitting this over pretty easily here. Obviously, injury can derail anything, but let's get into Thompson here next. Thompson, 36 and a half goals for next season. I want to say last wasn't when we did this last year. I feel like it was like 46 and a half, but he was coming off that crazy year where he put like 50 away or whatever it was, 47. So what do you think? What do you think you got Tage over under 46 and a half for next year or 36 and a half? Sorry.
I was going to say, holy fuck. I want to hear what you say first.
For Tage, for the big man.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is tough because I feel like I'm gonna have him kind of like right around this number for this season. I do think the scoring is going to be spread out a little bit more this year. Tage is obviously going to get his goals on the power play. The reason I'm going to say over here is because I think the power play is going to be better this year, and I think he'll score a little bit more on the power play, and I think he's going to be healthy this year too. Um, I also think getting an A is makes a difference for him, and he's going to be wanting to keep his level of play up and rebound after last year. These guys are professional athletes. When they have a season that doesn't live up to par with their expectations for themselves, they take that personally, especially a guy who's as competitive as Tage. So I'm expecting a good bounce back season. I don't know if he'll hit 40, but I think he might get like between 37 and 39, and I'd feel pretty comfortable taking the over on that.
Yeah, I'm going to hit the over on this as well. He was injured for a lot of the season last year and still had 29. A healthy Tage Thompson is a premier goal scorer in this league. He I don't know, like you said, I don't know if he's going to flirt with 40, but 36 and a half is such a good number. But just because I like to say I like Tage so much, I think he's going to hit over that number.
I mean, he's a guy who can get 4 or 5 in one game alone.
Yeah, right.
So
The goals
you
can
have the
come.
ability to do that. I mean, every year he gets 2 or 3 hat tricks, so he's just feeling it that night and is the best player on the ice, on both sides. So with his ability to score, yeah, I think he gets there.
And like you said, the power play, I do think the power play scoring might be a little um stretched out. I think for once the Sabres are going to give some love to their second power play, and instead of just trotting them out there to just eat 30 seconds while your other guys are resting. So the power play scoring might be stretched out, and that might take away from Thompson. But I don't care, man. He's such an elite goal scorer that when healthy, he can put 40 away in his sleep.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I'm definitely on the over with Tage there. Let's get into Cousins next. So Dylan Cousins had a tough year last year. If you've been listening to this show for a while, you know where we love Dylan Cousins. We're Dylan Cousins podcast. We have faith in this guy. The over under is set at 58.5 for this upcoming season. 47 points last year, 68 the year before in his breakout year, which was everybody's breakout year, of course. But so this is kind of set right in the middle of that. So where do you think we end up with Dylan Cousins this year?
This line is so hard, isn't it?
It's hard because you don't really know what it's going to be yet.
I like you don't know what he's gonna like. I think a lot of this depends on what we see from Quinn.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And also who else is going to be on that line? So because if Zucker ends up getting that job, maybe that caps a little bit of his potential point wise. If not or not, if Zucker is a revelation. I mean, they are paying him $5 million, so maybe they're going to want him on that second line. But I don't anticipate that. But would you rather have? Do you think it's better for Cousins to have Benson or to have Kulik on that second line? If those are the couple guys you're picking from.
Probably Benson, only because I think with Kulik on that line, that might be the line that enters Lindy's doghouse if they start getting scored on. Like for as much as we love Dylan Cousins, he's not exactly the best defensive player on the team. I think the myth of Dylan Cousins being a strong player in his own zone is like one of the most absurd things in Sabres in like Sabres community, like Sabres Twitter. Like he's not a good defensive player. He's got the body for it and the willingness, so he could of course learn. But so far through his career, he's kind of been like absolutely brutal in his own zone. So if Lindy puts them in the doghouse, like maybe does that cap our point total a little bit, at least 5-on-5? I think I'm talking to myself into saying under.
He's very tough. He's very tough. I think Benson, if you put Benson on that line, I think that's better for his goal total. If you put Kulik on that line, I think that's possibly better for his assist total because I think Benson will be an improved finisher this year, but I think that Kulik is already like an elite finisher, and I think he can be elite at the NHL level too, even in his first year. But those
Cousins
might just be a
himself
neutral.
should be a good finisher, like in theory.
Yeah, I mean he kind of I mean he was a couple years ago. He wasn't last year. I mean he got robbed of probably 6 or 7 goals last year from all the posts he hit. He probably hit 10 or 11 posts, last season. So he's one of those
Yeah,
guys
I
who was
feel
real
like
close.
I feel like every game last year, or like, Cousins would be like, I don't know what was going on with him. Like, he was terrible, like carrying the puck, but then he'd have like one glorious chance and just like miraculously get glove saved, like the most ridiculous glove save you ever seen in your life. And of course, it was on the puck on Dylan Cousins' stick. So you got to think a couple of those are going to go in this year.
Well, let me ask you this. He it's no it's no surprise last year that it was the first year playing under the new contract and he felt the pressure of that. I mean, this is year 2 on the new contract. You're making 7.1 million a year. So if he's if you're saying under and you're thinking maybe he's like a 50 to 55 point player, is that a good contract for him or should we be expecting more?
It really just depends on how the other facets of his game are. Like, I'll pay $7.1 million to a 52-point player if they're also decent defensively and can transport the puck from defense to offense and give us zone time. Like I think that's fine,
Yeah.
especially with the clip going up. But like if he does hit like the 60-point threshold, then that's a big W for us.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. He can drive play. He can definitely drive play. I think Ruff being here this year is gonna help him. I think he's gonna respond better to being in year two of that big contract and not feeling the pressure. I also think this revamped fourth line will help him a lot because as much as I think he wanted to be physical last season, he got his face pumped in like the first couple weeks, and then you have no other help. Like there was no one else on that team last year that was gonna help him out with that. I think you have a
Well,
sense of I'm not
do
the
you
only
remember?
guy who has to do that now.
Do you remember he called us soft?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And
And it's
Adams
like
was like, "We don't say that."
and then he got reprimanded for it. But that was him last year. It's like you're feeling all the weight of this new contract. I mean, you're still a young kid. I mean, he's 23 years old, so he's 22 last season for half the season, and so you're a young kid, you're making all this money, you have all these expectations. Then that happens early on in the season, so you don't feel like you have the backing of the coach. You're having a tough season already. You're probably feeling like you're the only player who is going to be somewhat physical or is going to have to stand up for everybody on this team. I think a lot of that is gone this year. I think Ruff is going to love him. He's the type of guy that Ruff likes. All this is to say, I'm still going to take the under on points, but I think he's going to be close. I think he's going to take the like 55 to 60. I could see him going over. I feel the least confident in this out of all of them because I do think he has a high ceiling and I think he has a bounce back season. But I mean, I'll take the under though.
All right, let's move on to the next one, to the captain.
Darlene goals. This one we made up on our own. It's kind of interesting because the sports books didn't have anything on Darlene. I thought for sure he'd be the one guy that the sports books had for sure. We're kind of wondering if the injury had anything to do with that or not. But we set this at 17 and a half. This is a Sabres Spotlight special here. 17 and a half goals for Rasmus Dahlin this upcoming season. Had 20 last year and I believe 15 the year before. I think he was the third highest scoring defenseman last season in terms of goals. Uh, and so what do you think? What are you going to say here? Over under 17 and a half for Dahlin this year?
I'm gonna say over. This guy can shoot the piss out of the puck. I love his offensive flair. Obviously, he's one of the most gifted offensive players in the league, but his goal scoring has really come on in the last like 2 seasons. Like you said, 15 2 years ago, and then 20 this year or
Yep.
the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think he is. I think for the rest of his career, he's gonna flirt with 20 goals every single season.
I have a bold prediction here. My bold prediction.
Let's go. Lay it on me.
My bold prediction here is that Rasmus Dahlin smashes this over. I'm this is gonna be like a double or triple parlay. We'll see where this thought takes me because I told you I'm feeling spicy on this podcast, so we'll see what happens here. But I'm gonna take the over. That's leg number one. Okay. Part two of this parlay. I'm gonna say that this year Dahlin with the captaincy breaks the record for most goals by a Sabres defenseman in a season, and that's 32 goals over
No
Phil House
fucking way, dude.
over
That would be
Phil
absurd,
Housley from 83-84. I'm calling 32 goals,
dude. I mean, that would be
and
fucking sick.
we're going with the Norris Trophy for
I
Dahlin this
mean,
season.
yes. If
We're going with
Darlene
the
flirts with
triple
30
parlay.
goals, if Darlene flirts with 30 goals, he's a lock for the Norris.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first. That's
I'm
my
just
crazy
curious.
bold take.
I'm just curious because I want to see how many defensemen in history have scored 32 goals. So I'm gonna look right now because I'm pretty sure the last one to do it was Mike Green in like 2010. But there has to have been like did like I'm looking right now. Yeah, so dude, Mike. So the last defenseman to score 30 goals was Mike Green in the 2008-09 season for the Capitals.
Yeah, so I mean, it'd be a historic season, that's for sure.
It
But
would.
why
It
not?
would. I mean, I'm on board. I'm on board. It'd be pretty sick.
I'm going 32. What do you think the payout on that would be? On
A
that three
lot.
leg parlay hitting? Oh my gosh,
A
that would
lot.
be insane. All right, so we got a little hyperbolic with that one, but if that happens, oh my gosh, I'm
If
clipping
that
that and
happens
I'm putting
and
it
we don't
all
make the
over.
playoff, if that happened and we didn't make the playoffs, like, because that would be, we're just pumping in goals for fun at that point. I would just cease to watching, like, just not watch sports for the rest of my life. Like, what would be the point?
I just love this man. Darlene, he's just I'm so glad he got this. I'm so glad he got to see. I I mean he was down on the NHL top 40 list. He was ranked 28 going into last season and he was down to 40 this season. So I mean that stuff kind of matters to these guys. Darlene's the ultimate competitor, so I think he's got something to prove. I mean, of course, the chances of him actually getting to 32 are tough, but we'll see if it happens. Zach Benson, we're gonna go to next. This is an interesting player for this upcoming season. He had a nice rookie season, a season that a lot of us weren't anticipating. 11 goals, 19 points. He gets or 11 goals, 19 assists. He gets to 30 points in his first season. Was durable for a small kid, smart. I mean, we love him on the podcast here, the Goblin. We expect growth coming into year two, especially if he's playing up on potentially a top six line. We have the goals here set at 22.5. That might seem heavy. He only scored 11 last year. He also got robbed a ton last year. He could have easily had 5 or 6 more goals that went in last year. So I think he had a decent chance to get 16 or 17 goals last year. If you bake in a little just progression for season two and potentially a top six role, you never know. We ultimately set this because my ESPN fantasy league has him projected to score 23. So there's some momentum out there for Benson to be more offensive this season. So what do you think about Benson coming into season two over under 22 and a half goals?
I'm going to say under. I think he'll finish around 16, 17, or 18.
Okay, I'm gonna say under two. I don't know if he gets there, but I think it can be close. I think he could hit 20 this season. That's for sure.
Right, right.
And
I agree.
but you see that I love watching this guy play. You see that assist he had to Cousins the other day.
Yeah, it was super nasty.
Oh my gosh, I think he's gonna be a little rat out there this year. I mean,
He
he
doesn't it
wanted to
look
fight
like
some guy last year or last game
doesn't it
too.
look like he's playing with like I know he was really good last year, which is insane for an 18-year-old that he was like one of our best players like consistently. But I think this year he looks like I know it's preseason obviously, but just more confident, like
Oh
handling the
yeah,
puck and all that.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's also got to be a somewhat a degree of it's not like his roster spot is guaranteed. I mean, there are young kids that are in the system that can come up and I mean there are capable forwards on this team already. So you're still playing. I mean, sure, you're anticipating that he's mostly making it, but in a way, it's like he's still just a 19-year-old kid. That spot can be taken from you, so you never know. So I'm sure he's playing with a little bit of that. But yeah, I think he's going to have a great second season. This guy, I mean, he does it all. He really does do it all at such a young age.
Yeah, it's wild that he's one of our more complete players at such a young age. Like just think about how good he's going to be in like 2 seasons from now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I know, man. I can't wait. I can't wait to see him. He's. It's fun. It's cool that I'm like. I mean, I've always kind of paid attention to the Sabres, but really kind of paid attention the last like few years. It's kind of cool to see like these players grow up. Who's like a player over the last like 10, 15 years that like developed well with the Sabres? Have we had any like good development stories?
Like Darlene and JJ, like really
Well,
just
I mean,
frequently,
I
you know.
guess like yeah, but anyone like before that, like any like
Sam was good. Remember how good Reinhardt was so good for us and like was
yeah.
definitely like like overlooked, definitely scapegoated. But dude, the the last like 10 seasons. It's been just like a disappointment after disappointment. So the guys really never reached their peak here until like now. Like I feel like the last 3 years have been like bastions for development and
Yeah,
guys like hitting their stride. So I honestly can't even name like guys that were like, oh, this guy kind of came out of nowhere and was good,
yeah,
which is
yeah. Middlestat.
embarrassing.
I mean, Middlestat was
Yeah, but
decent.
that wasn't until last year.
Yeah. The thing with Benson that makes that different for me is that like I think he can be like, and I mean I know we drafted him what like ninth overall, so he is a top pick, but I think he can be like an elite player in this league. So it's going to be kind of fun to like watch. It's not like he's developing into like a 50-point guy or something. Like I think he can be like a point per game player. So seeing if he can reach that potential will be exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like this guy is like a mini version of Mark Stone. Like he's just super solid defensively, like and just contributes. I could see, like you said, I could see him progressing in a couple years, just like hitting 70 points like sleepwalking.
Yeah, seriously, the skill is there, that's for sure. But all right, let's go. Let's switch it over to the goalie here. UPL had a nice season last year. I just traded him for my in my fantasy league because screw Jacob Markstrom cleared him right off the goalie bench and got UPL. So we did a straight up 1-for-1. And he's UPL's over unders this year are set at 25.5. What do you think?
Last year he had 27 wins. If the Sabres are making the playoffs like we both think so, I UPL has to get over 25 and a half wins. But I did think about this before um I was thinking about this before we got to him. What what if Devin Levi steals the crease?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You know, that's what makes it tough. I want to say when we did this, so it's weird because when we did this show last year, the sports books had over unders for both UPL and Levi, so they were assuming it was going to be like the job was up in the air, and that's what we all thought. Like Levi's going to take the crease. UPL hadn't had his breakout yet, so it kind of made sense. Now that you can't even find a line for Levi. It's just UPL. So the sports books are thinking UPL's the guy. Obviously, he got the big contract, so all that makes sense. But there is, you know, all that aside, there is still this kind of piece of like you were saying, what if Levi just he ends up being the better goalie? He's a hot goalie. They'll ride him. It's a do or die season for them as far as making the playoffs. So that's something to consider here. How much is that affecting things for you as far as the ultimate, you know, total?
I'm gonna say that UPL gets over 25 and a half. He's gonna flirt with like 28, you know, if he's the guy, like truly, and last year wasn't like a mirage. And I gotta say, this UPL is kind of like what we were expecting, like when we drafted him from
Mm-hmm.
Sudbury in the OHL. When you got to remember, in Sudbury, he was OHL Player of the Year. Like he was incredible. He went to the season before he aged out of junior to go to Rochester. He had double hip surgery. So he was good and then kind of lost it a little bit because double hip surgery for a goaltender is major and it takes a little while coming back from that to get back to, you know, full form. And then kind of when he started getting healthy, 2 years ago, we were like, oh, this guy might be something. Like he might be something. And then it fell apart for a little bit. And then last year, he wasn't even the first goalie going into the season. He was the third goalie.
Mm-hmm.
And we carried
Yeah.
three. And then when he
Yep.
finally got his chance, he looked healthy. His mobility was fantastic. He wasn't
Mm-hmm.
playing small anymore. Remember when UPL would get super small in the net? Like, dude, you're six
Yeah. Oh, he
six.
was challenging
Like,
pucks. He was coming out of the on pucks. Yep.
so he looked
Taking off
confident. He
angles.
looked healthy. And if he parlays that into this season, I don't think Devin Levi gets the crease at all. I think this is going to be UPL's team and UPL's net, and Lindy will ride him. And the Sabres are making the playoffs, so he's definitely going over.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. How what's the percentage of starts you think he gets? Like, do you think he could get like 60-65% of starts?
Yeah, I think he's gonna. Well, how many did he play last year?
So if he got 60% of starts, that's 49 starts. If they give him
Yeah,
65, that's 53. Last year, I want to say he probably hit 50 or 52.
yeah. I think he's gonna play around the same range, and if this like we've been saying, if we're good, he's gonna hit the over there. Like if we're a good team, if he's playing 50 games,
He had
I
54
don't
last year.
I can't I don't see him either A carrying a losing record or B going break even.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean 27, 22, and 4 last season. So he was pretty much 50-50 last season, 27, 26. Um, net wins and loss there. So I would anticipate if he's playing like he is last season, he's going to get around that same amount of games, and I think this isn't over. I think the only thing that could limit this is an injury. I think if the Sabres play how we're anticipating them to play, and he gets as many starts and opportunities as that he is going to get, then I think he'll play well, and he should easily hit this over. So we're both going over then.
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. Last thing we added in here. This is a big talking point that we've mentioned, and we need to see this get better next season. Power play percentage over under 20 and a half. The league average last year was basically this 20.5, but the Sabres were, I think, 29th in the league. They had like a 16.5%. So what do you think here? Over under 20 and a half power play percentage. Do we think it's going to be around league average this year?
I'm gonna cheat a little bit, okay? I'm gonna
Okay.
say this will be a push.
Okay.
They're gonna get 20 and a half because they have to be league average. Like I refuse to predict them to have a good power play, and it would really make me sad if I said they're gonna have a bad one. So I think they're gonna have a league average 20.5% converting power play.
Okay. All right.
And I'm
I'll
just
go
going off
over.
vibes. I'm
I'm going
going vibes
over.
here.
I
That's
got you.
fine.
I got you. I'm gonna hit over because I believe in Seth Appert. I think Appert is a great addition to this coaching staff, and probably one day gonna supersede Lindy as the head coach of this team in the future years to come. He did good things for Rochester and their ability to score. Granted, I know there's limited defense in the AHL, but still they always had a good power play there. So I believe in Seth Appert as the assistant coach and working with the power play here to do a lot better than Matt Ellis did last season. So I'm gonna take the over here. I think you've already seen this transition start in just these couple preseason games where the Sabres have had most of their NHL starters in. Like actually having some set plays and seeing the power play unit just look like way more consistent. And they've gotten a couple goals out of it. So I'm gonna hit the over on that.
I like where your head's at. I really do.
I don't think we've talked enough about Appert on this podcast specifically, and I know, because I do think he's a key. Obviously, Ruff's the big headliner, but I'm a big fan of Seth Appert, and he's coached a lot of these players, and so I think he's kind of like a hidden gem, an uncovered or unspoken hero for this team right now.
If we can have an Appert sidebar here, I would love to. Because did you see recent? It recently came out that last year he had a sit down conversation with Yuri Kulik. Have you seen this article?
No.
So I'm not sure who was reporting on it, but it was like someone did an Appert piece, and they were talking about how when Yuri came back from World Junior last year and kind of was struggling, he like heard it from media and was kind of like getting down. You could notice that Kulik was not like feeling great about his game. So to lean into him, he leaned into him like a little bit and was like, "You're way better of a player than this." And to try to like get into his head a little bit more and like make him feel more comfortable, he like translated an article from in Czech, like talking positive about Kulik and like read it to him
Yeah.
and was, listen, this is how good you are. This is what your country thinks of you. Like, go
Yeah.
out there
Yeah.
and play.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it kind of
Yeah.
like turned the season around.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. That doesn't surprise me. I think his emotional intelligence is very high, and the way he connects with these players is good. So I'm excited to see him behind the bench. I mean, just going from last season to like having I don't even know who the hell our assistant coach was last season. We had Granado, obviously. Who was the assistant?
It was Matt Ellis, dude.
Matt Ellis was the assistant coach.
It was him. It was him. Well, we had pretty much have the same coaches, besides replacing Ellis with Appert. You know.
But well, no, but I'm saying, but seeing Ruff and Appert behind the bench like this season is like, I mean, that's just like
Oh,
way up.
Jason Christie. Remember that
Yeah,
fucker?
I just can't wait. Honestly, just can't wait to like watch Sabres games and just seeing Ruff and Appert back there and just feeling way more comfortable and confident with that than what the Sabres had last season. So that'll be cool to see at the start of this season. But all right, I'm gonna let you take the lead here for the transition into Eastern Conference because I gotta go take a piss real quick. So I'll be back in 1 second. So you can kind of take the lead here on the Eastern Conference until I get back.
All right, guys. We got some little bit of Eastern Conference storylines that we think are quite interesting, and it wouldn't be the Eastern Conference if we didn't talk about the New Jersey Devils first, because this is the NHL sweetheart team. They have the third best Stanley Cup odds at plus 1100. The teams in front of them are Florida and Edmonton, the two teams that made the Cup final. Now, I know Detroit has had a lot of additions. They brought in Sheldon Keefe. They brought in Jacob Markstrom. Excuse me. They brought in Brett Pesci. They brought in Brendan Dillon. They're returning a healthy Jack Hughes, a healthy Nico Hischier, and finally some stability in goal with Markstrom here. Like Markstrom is undoubtedly a good goalie. He was great in Calgary for his whole career, great in Florida even back when he was younger. So are the storyline we have here is, are the Devils being overhyped? And I'm gonna say yes, like to a degree. I don't know if Matt will agree with me when he comes back, but tied for third in Stanley Cup odds is completely insane. They missed the playoffs last year, and while yes, they did make a bunch of additions, and they do seemingly have improvements on paper, we need to see it play out. We need to see it play out. I just don't know. Is Sheldon Keefe a good enough coach to like have a like 25-point improvement on last year? Maybe, maybe we'll see. But I don't know. When Matt comes back, let's see. Let's see if he disagrees. I said that they're being overhyped, but also like they're not being overhyped because I think they're going to be really good. But tied for third in Stanley Cup odds is crazy.
Yeah, that's what's crazy to me is the tie for third in the Stanley Cup odds. I feel pretty comfortable with the Metropolitan Division being like as weak as it is this season, that the Devils are going to be pretty good. I think Sheldon Keefe is a fine replacement for Lindy Ruff there. I think Lindy Ruff would have been a fine coach for them again this season if they went and addressed the goaltending like they needed to do last season. So I think they're just replacing a good coach with a good coach, and the lineup's already there. They get kind of hurt last year with Hischier got hurt, right? Hischier was out for a while, I believe, for them. Was that their main injury last year that they dealt with?
Yeah. Well, Hischier missed time. Meyer missed time.
They all
They
did.
they a lot of them
I
like
mean,
missed
Hughes
a
was
ton
banged
of
up for a while too, so like
like
there's
Lindy. Like I like Sheldon Keefe as a coach. Like you said, I think they're kind of like on the same level here in terms of like coaching like acumen. But
yeah,
Lindy was like he got like nothing to work with there. Like
no, no,
they were kind of decimated with injury. That's why I think Keefe is like coming into a better situation, probably the situation
yeah,
that Lindy should have had last year.
yeah. Keith's definitely coming into a better situation. The one thing that's interesting about this is I feel like it was good for Keith to get out of Toronto because it was just it was just time, and there's all those
It was a
expectations
circus.
and criticisms. Yeah, exactly. But like I mean, you're coming to a team now that has clear like Stanley Cup aspirations, right? Everyone's saying they're good enough, so it's not even like you went to a team where you could like take a breath. Like they're being hyped so much that it's like, okay, well, how do you do like it's not the Toronto market, of course, I get that, but you're still going to a market where there's expectations to perform, and I think they're going to be good. I think they can get into the Metro, but tied for third best in the Stanley Cup odds. Like, do I think they're primed for like a deep Stanley Cup run, like over some of these other Atlantic competitors, like Boston or Toronto or Florida, the Rangers, the Panthers, teams that have kind of been there, done that lately. I I I don't agree with the Stanley Cup odds. So I do think they're being overhyped, but I think they'll have a good season.
Or like Dallas. Like I think Dallas is firmly ahead of them.
Oh yeah, I mean I didn't even mention anybody like in the West.
You
I was
didn't even
just
mention
thinking
the
the
Western
East,
teams.
but yeah, that's
Right.
that's I mean that but yeah, I guess that those teams come into play. Edmonton, Dallas, yeah, like those teams are certainly above them as far as the West goes. That might be all I actually put above them out of the West, though. Those
Okay.
those two teams, I wouldn't put the Kings above them. I don't think I'd put. Yeah, I might actually put Vegas above them as well. I'm not as high
They're up
on
there
on
for
Vegas
sure.
this season, but yeah, so they're certainly being overhyped, but they should have a fine season.
Let's talk about another team that somehow made the playoffs last year in the Washington Capitals.
Dude, I
Minus
like this team. I
37.
like this team.
Fuck. What?
I do. I
Well,
do. I'm
okay,
gonna say
I need to hear you elaborate on why you like this team. But last year they had a minus 37 goal differential, the worst goal differential to ever make the Stanley Cup playoffs. And they did make additions.
yeah.
They traded for Pierre-Luc Dubois, Andrew Mangiapane, Logan Thompson, and Jacob Chikrin. They made additions. Like they are clearly going for playoffs. Tell me why you
Yeah.
like them.
I like them because first off, I like those additions. I PLD is the one. It's like it hasn't
He's
worked out
so
anywhere.
weird. He's
It
so
hasn't
weird.
worked out anywhere. I just kind of think like after a while, like it's gonna work out somewhere, and I kind of think this might be the spot that it works out. Like Logan Thompson is like an upgrade for them in goal, but they have Kemper as well, right? Don't they still have Darcy
Yep.
Kemper, who was like a fine goal? So like that tandem is like not bad as far as goalie goes. I like Spencer Carberry as a head coach. I think he did really good things with them last season, obviously pushing them to the playoffs. And I like the moves that they made. Also, Ovechkin, he still potted like I think 30 goals last year or like 31 goals last season, and he started slow. So, and I know he's a
Yeah.
year older, but like he picked it up at the end of the season, and his shooting percentage was kind of high. So if you can get like Alex Ovechkin, who's chasing Gretzky for that goal lead, coming out and scoring like another 40 goals, which like let's be honest, like he kind of just does that every single year. And last year you could say was the anomaly. I don't know. I like the moves they made. I think it just might kind of work out. They have some young talent on this team as well. I I don't know. I'm not like rooting for them, but I like what they did.
It all makes sense to me. I want to see Ovechkin break the goal record so bad. So they can, Washington can do whatever they want and add these players as long as they help Ovechkin break the goal record. Like keep adding guys. Like don't like blow it up yet. As soon as he's as soon as he breaks the goal record, I think that they're going to blow the entire team up.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But you know how much like that's a money pull for them. Oh my god, like the chasing history. Let's elaborate on that a little bit more. Just so Ovechkin has 853 goals, so he's 42 goals away from breaking Gretzky's record of 894. So just for reference for the listeners, 2022, Ovechkin had 50 goals. In 2023, 42 goals. And then last year, 31 goals. So it's not like out of the realm of possibility that he could potentially break this record this season, but I don't think it's likely. But it could potentially happen this year. Imagine how much money and buzz is going to be around that team if he's like getting there towards the end of the season and they're also in like a playoff push. Like
Yeah,
that
I
could
know.
that could be some crazy shit, man.
I know. I know. I want to see it. I don't think it'll happen necessarily this year, but he's got to get it. It would be
Hmm.
so fun. It would be so amazing. It's a record that people thought would never be broken. And give you a little fun fact here. So Austin Matthews is on a higher pace, goal scoring wise, than Ovechkin was at the same age. So if
That's
Ovechkin
crazy.
breaks this record, Austin Matthews is going to be right behind him in the next 7, 8, 9 years, however long he plays.
Yeah.
This this guy is a phenom. But I
Yeah.
want Ovechkin to get this record. It would be unreal. He's one of the players of our generation. We were in high school when he was entering the league, and he was just doing unreal stuff. He's got one of the most iconic goals in league history, the one where he scored on his back against Arizona, just incredible.
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
I,
Yep.
I want I want to see it so bad. Like the guy has put his body on the line every single year for this team. Finally got his cup, like years ago. So just start putting more pucks in the net and break that record.
They're a team I'm gonna be watching for sure. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on around Washington, and they're a sneaky pick. Last year I was on Vancouver. Vancouver was kind of the team that I was backing and was like, I think this is a team that could make a jump this season, and I think that's the Washington Capitals for me going into this next season here. Let's get into another young player here, and Matvey Michkov. This is someone I'm very interested in. I'm going to run through some things here real quick and then give you some time to elaborate. But seventh overall pick in the 2023 NHL draft. So he's 19 years old, 5'10", 148. So he's still going to grow and become more physical of a presence and grow into his NHL body. But he's set to play his rookie season with Philadelphia this year. Philly gets him over from Russia, something they do better than any other team in the league. They get him over here, quicker than they were anticipating. Danny Briere made some comments on him working with Tortorella, saying there's going to be some fireworks, but he's going to teach him to be a pro. He's going to teach him to be the best player he can be. I think this kid has a lot of skill. You can speak to that probably a lot more than me. Right now, his FanDuel over under is set at 46.5. So, they're thinking this is going to be an impact player right away. He's looked pretty good in a couple preseason games already. What are you thinking here? Is this something you're looking forward to? This kid's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great, but I'm more curious to see what his relationship with John Tortorella is going to be like. Because this guy is flashy. He's not necessarily like the best defensive player in the world. I mean, he's small, like he's very skinny, but I love when we have these young kids that with like so much flair come into the league because it makes for fun watching. So I'm gonna be tuning into some Philly games just to see how he plays, but
Yeah.
he could be electric like immediately. Like we don't know. We've never seen this kid play in this league, and he's been pretty good overseas. So we'll see. It's gonna be fun.
It's a lot of pressure. Philly, big hockey market. You're a young kid. There's high expectations, not necessarily for Philly, but for him personally. Him coming over from Russia was a big deal. That's a thing in of itself. He doesn't, from what I have heard, speak very good English. So you're in a new country. There's communication barriers. Like that's a lot on a young kid's plate. So there's a lot more kind of externally going on for him. So how can he, at a young age, kind of compartmentalize and handle a lot of those pressures and perform on the ice? It'll be interesting to see what happens with him and how all that kind of comes together for Philly. Uh, I have one other point here that I want to talk about with Toronto, but before we go into there, is there anything else Eastern Conference that you want to talk about specifically, or you want to get right into Maple Leafs?
Let's talk Leafs.
All right, so Berube is in, Keefe is out. They've made a few moves that I actually like this offseason, acquiring Ekman Larson, Chris Tanev, Yanni Hakanpää. So shoring up the defensive side a little bit of a sneaky signing with goalie Anthony Stolars, who's going to be kind of working in tandem there with Wall as their kind of 1-2 punch there. But the big question with the Leafs is, are these moves enough, and is Berube enough to finally get them out of the second round? They've made the playoffs for 8 consecutive seasons, but they've been bounced in the first round 7 of those seasons. The one season they did make it to the second round, they got beat 4-1 by the Panthers in a race that wasn't all that, or a second round that wasn't all that close. So, what do you think about the Leafs going into this next season?
I think they're just going to be the same old Leafs. They're
Yeah,
pretty good in the regular season. I just don't see a Stanley Cup winner at all. I see a good playoff team. Maybe they can reach the conference finals, like if they're lucky, but first or second round exit is in the cards for sure.
there's some interesting dynamics with them this year. Matthews has the C now. He got
Yep.
the C from John Tavares. Mitch Marner, obviously, he kind of had a little bit of a crapshoot end to last season, and there's been a lot of talk about him. There was talks about him potentially being traded this offseason. He stays. He's talked about how they're gods in Toronto.
So weird. Such a weird comment.
So there's a lot of things going on in here. Obviously, Berube is a high pedigree coach. So what can he do in that market? He is kind of a calming presence, I feel like, at the head coach position. So he might be able to handle that pressure a little bit better than Sheldon Keefe. But I, I'm with you, man. I think they're certainly good enough to come in second in the Atlantic, because I think the Atlantic is kind of weak overall. The East is not. I don't know. I'm not. It's a weird. It's going to be a weird year this year for hockey. The East and the West, both sides can potentially be interesting, but I think Toronto's got a lock on second in the Atlantic here, and but built for the playoffs and built for a Stanley Cup run. I don't think so. I think Toronto's going to be sad again come April, but we'll see what happens. All right. I think that pretty much wraps it up, other than our predictions, right?
Yeah, I just got my phone out so I could get to my our playoff predictions here.
All right, let's go Metro first. Give me your top three in the Metro.
I will say a little bit of a sneak, like a preview for what I'm about to say about the Atlantic, but I will say I only have three Metro teams making the playoffs.
Oh,
I
okay. All
have
right.
the Rangers, followed by the Devils, followed by the Hurricanes in the Metro.
Okay. 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 I'm pretty much aligned with you there, except for the last team. I got the Rangers, I got the Devils, and then I got my Washington Capitals coming in third.
Sneaking in, huh?
Absolutely. What do you
That
got
was
in the
good.
Atlantic?
So in the Atlantic, this is where it gets fun. I'm pretty sure that we're in for a lock here with Florida, Toronto, Boston. Top three in the
Yeah,
Atlantic.
I'm aligned with
They're
you there. Yep.
they're good. Here's where it gets fun. I said earlier the Sabres are finishing with 96 points. They are taking on what? They are taking wild card one.
Oh man.
So in second place, this is going to come back to bite me because I hate them. I have the Ottawa Senators
I knew you were gonna say Ottawa.
getting the last playoff spot. Lena Solmark is going to be very good for them. And this team is just as desperate as Buffalo is to make the playoffs. I think both of them get in. I really do.
I like Ottawa's roster, man. We debated last year early on in the season, like whose core is better between the Sabres and Ottawa, and we still gave the edge to the Sabres. But the Ottawa's got a nice roster. They were just in shambles last year with
Yeah,
everything that
it was a
happened.
joke. I mean, I am giving a little bit too much credit. They did bring in Travis Green to be their head coach, and I don't really think that highly of him. I just want him to be different. And we saw what happened with Jack Eichel in Buffalo. I firmly believe that this is the Jack Eichel last season in Buffalo season for Brady Tkachuk. Like if it doesn't go well, he's asking to be traded.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
there's
you're
no
right. You're
doubt.
right. Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I
So
don't
for
think
his
that's
sake and
out of the realm of
Ottawa fans'
possibility.
sake, for his sake and for Ottawa fans' sake, I'm gonna say that they're gonna sneak in.
Yeah, I don't think it's that bold of a prediction. I thought about Ottawa as well, but I went with Carolina as my wild card one, and then Buffalo getting the wild card two. So Ottawa
So
doesn't make it for me.
we both have Tampa Bay missing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do. I think
Wow.
Stamkos. I mean, as much as I like Hedman, I think Stamkos can be a big loss there. They're a team that started to go through a little bit of transition last season, but and they still got it done. I don't know. It's hard for me to do that because they're another team kind of like Boston where I'm like, I kind of want to see them not make it before I predict that. But yeah, I mean, someone has to drop out if you're, putting these other teams in. So they can't all make it.
It would be so nice to see Tampa drop off. Like it's been coming for years.
Yep. Yep. I mean, Florida's the team there for sure. But all right. We got anything else before we get out of here?
I don't think I have anything to add. No goofballs this week. Not going to touch on P Diddy because we're just not going to go there. But he would be a goofball. That's all. That's all we got. I think we're ready to go. And this is potentially my last podcast before having a child. Maybe we're gonna get one in next week. I'm not really sure yet. But if you don't hear from me for a while, I will be back.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. One thing I wanted to say before we get out of here, when you guys, because this happened to me today. I feel like this is a perfect ending to the podcast. So there's a lot of bad smells in this world. Like there's a lot of times you're walking
Oh,
around and you smell something.
okay,
And you're
where's
like,
this
oh,
going?
that's a bad smell. That's a bad smell. Like whatever. Oh, like I got to get out of this area. You have not smelled a bad smell until you open up one of those diaper pails because you need to change it because it's full of diapers. It is the most disgusting thing in the world, and I cannot wait for you to start in sharing that experience with me in
Dude,
another couple
so
weeks.
I have a weak stomach. I can't handle anything. Like when it comes to smell, like even cleaning up like dog shit in the backyard, I'll like dry heave. So I'm very nervous for this.
Oh my god! I'll tell you what, those diaper pails they do a great job at getting rid of that smell because you don't smell anything. But as soon as you open it to change it, oh my god, it's like a truck full of
My
just
God. I
ass in
might
your face.
we still have masks from COVID. I might have to throw them on before we do that.
It's not bad. Yeah, I might actually have to start doing that myself. But all right, folks. Well, on that note, we're going to get out of here. If we by chance don't get an episode in, before this season starts next Friday. Hopefully, the Sabres get off to a good start this season. And Ryan, depending on what's obviously happening with your situation, then Sabres Spotlight will continue. I might just do a couple. Solo shows in the meantime, but don't fret. Ryan's not going anywhere. He's going to be here along for the ride, along for season 2, and season starts in 7 days. So we'll see you guys, next week, whether it's just me or whether it's both of us. And puck drops on Friday. And other than that, you know what to know. Stay safe in the Sabrehood. Follow the socials, and we'll see everybody next week. Later.
See ya.